Omega was just serving food in the pack hall, until the Alpha saw her mark and bowed before her. The scent of roasted venison and fresh bread should have been comforting, but to Lila Matthews, it only meant another night of dodging cruel words and flying plates. She pressed her back against the cold stone wall of the Crescent Moon Pack's great hall, clutching a heavy wooden tray that made her thin arms ache. The feast was in full swing, celebrating their recent victory over the rival Shadow Ridge Pack, and every wolf in the territory had gathered to honor their alpha. Just stay invisible, she whispered to herself, the same mantra she'd repeated every day for the past 3 years since her parents died in a rogue attack. Serve the food, clean up, disappear. Move it, Omega. A sharp elbow jabbed into her ribs as Marcus, one of the pack warriors, shoved past her with a sneer. Some of us actually belong here. Lila bit her lip and stepped aside, her hazel eyes fixed on the floor. At 19, she was small even for an Omega, barely 5'3" with strawberry blonde hair that she kept braided back and out of the way. Her wolf had never emerged, not even during the full moon ceremonies. The pack doctor said it might never come, making her the lowest of the low in their world. Look at her, came a crystalline voice that made Lila's stomach drop. Still wearing those ratty hand-me-downs. Honestly, father should have sent her away years ago. Serena Blackwood glided across the stone floor like she owned it, which, as the beta's daughter, she practically did. Her long black hair cascaded in perfect waves over her shoulders, and her emerald dress probably cost more than Lila made in a year from her servant wages. Everything about Serena screamed dominance, from her straight posture to the way other pack members automatically moved out of her path. At least she's useful for something, Serena continued loudly, ensuring everyone nearby could hear. Though I'm not sure why Alpha Rowan allows such weakness in our pack. Bad genetics tend to spread. Heat burned in Lila's cheeks, but she kept her head down. Fighting back would only make things worse. She'd learned that lesson the hard way during her first week here, when she dared to speak up and earned herself kitchen duty for a month. Enough. The single word cut through the chatter like a blade, and every wolf in the immediate area went silent. Lila's heart hammered as she recognized the deep, authoritative voice of Alpha Rowan Sterling himself. She risked a glance upward and immediately understood why every she-wolf in 3 territories had tried to catch his attention. At 28, Rowan was everything an alpha should be. Tall and broad-shouldered, with dark brown hair that looked like he'd been running his hands through it, and piercing blue eyes that seemed to see everything. His presence filled the room, commanding respect without him even trying. Serena, he said calmly, but there was steel beneath the words. I believe your father needs you at the head table. Serena's perfectly glossed lips pressed into a thin line. For a moment, Lila thought she might argue. But even the beta's daughter wasn't foolish enough to challenge their alpha publicly. Of course, Alpha Sterling, she replied sweetly, shooting Lila a look that promised this wasn't over. I was just helping motivate our staff. After Serena swept away, Rowan's gaze lingered on Lila for a moment that stretched far too long. She felt exposed, like he was seeing right through her carefully constructed invisibility. Are you all right? He asked quietly. Lila nearly dropped her tray in shock. The Alpha was speaking to her directly. Her, the packless Omega who scrubbed floors and served meals. Why yes, Alpha Sterling. Thank you. He studied her face with an expression she couldn't read, then nodded once before moving toward his seat at the high table. Lila watched him go, confused by the brief interaction. In 3 years, he'd never spoken to her beyond basic orders. Don't read into it, she scolded herself. He was just being decent. That's what good alphas do. But something had felt different about the way he looked at her, like he was searching for something he couldn't quite name. Did you hear what Elder Morrison was saying about the prophecy? 2 pack members passed by her, their voices low but not low enough. About the true Luna? That's just old folklore. Maybe, but strange things have been happening. The witches in Salem sent a message last week about celestial alignments. And you know what they say, the true Luna will come when the pack needs her most. They moved out of earshot, but their words sent a chill down Lila's spine. She'd heard whispers of the ancient prophecy before, usually dismissed as fairy tales meant to give hope during dark times. According to legend, a true Luna would emerge bearing the mark of the moon goddess herself, destined to unite all the packs under one rule and bring an era of peace. Pretty stories for pretty people, Lila thought bitterly. Some of us just serve the food. The night wore on and Lila fell back into her routine of weaving between tables, refilling wine goblets, and collecting empty plates. The victory celebration was louder than usual, with pack warriors sharing exaggerated tales of their battle prowess, and the unmated females preening in their finest dresses, hoping to catch Alpha Rowan's eye. As she balanced another heavy tray, Lila caught sight of her reflection in one of the polished silver platters. Plain features, tired eyes, clothes that had seen better decades. She looked exactly like what she was, a nobody who would never be anything more than a servant. She had no idea that in less than an hour, her entire world would turn upside down. The moon goddess, it seemed, had a sense of humor. The crystal wine goblets on Alpha Rowan's table caught the flickering candlelight like trapped stars, casting rainbow patterns across the dark wood. Lila approached with her heaviest tray yet, a full service of the pack's finest red wine, reserved only for the Alpha and his inner circle during special celebrations. Her arms trembled under the weight. 3 hours of non-stop serving had left her exhausted, and the silver tray felt like it weighed 100 pounds. She could do this. Just set it down carefully, pour the wine, and retreat back to the kitchen where she belonged. Don't mess this up, she told herself, taking measured steps across the stone floor. Not in front of everyone. But fate had other plans. A burst of laughter from Beta Marcus Blackwood's table made her flinch just as she reached for the first goblet. The sudden movement threw off her balance, and time seemed to slow as the tray tilted dangerously in her hands. No, no, no. The crash echoed through the great hall like thunder. Expensive crystal shattered against stone. Deep red wine splashed across the pristine white tablecloth, soaking into Alpha Rowan's papers and pooling around the ceremonial candles. The golden centerpiece, a carved wolf statue that had belonged to the pack for generations, toppled over with a metallic clang. Every single conversation stopped. 500 pairs of eyes turned toward her, and Lila felt like she might die from the humiliation. The silence was deafening, broken only by the steady drip of wine from the table's edge. "You clumsy little bitch." Serena's voice cut through the quiet like a whip. She shot up from her seat, her perfect face twisted with fury. "Look what you've done." Lila dropped to her knees immediately, frantically trying to gather the broken crystal with her bare hands. I'm so sorry, Alpha Sterling, I didn't mean." "She's ruined everything," Serena shrieked, playing up the drama for their audience. The ceremonial wine, the ancestral tablecloth, probably damaged important pack documents. This is completely unacceptable. Serena, Alpha Rowan's voice was calm, but Lila could hear the warning beneath it. Serena ignored him, swept up in her righteous anger and the attention of the crowd. "No, Father, this has gone on long enough. We've been too lenient with her. She needs to be taught a proper lesson." Beta Marcus stood slowly, his weathered face grave. At 55, he was one of the most respected wolves in the territory, his authority second only to the Alpha himself. "Perhaps my daughter is right. Such carelessness cannot go unpunished." 20 lashes, Serena declared boldly, her green eyes glittering with malice. "In front of the entire pack, so everyone can see what happens to those who disrespect our Alpha." Gasps rippled through the hall. Even by werewolf standards, 20 lashes was severe punishment for an accident. "That won't be necessary." Rowan's voice was ice cold now, but Serena was too caught up in her moment of power to notice. "She's nothing but a burden on this pack." Serena continued, gesturing dramatically at Lila's hunched form. No wolf, no family, no value whatsoever. Maybe it's time we… Enough! The alpha's roar made the ancient stone walls tremble. But Lila barely heard him. As she reached for a particularly large piece of crystal, her worn sleeve caught on a jagged edge and ripped from wrist to elbow with a loud tear. The moment her forearm was exposed, everything changed. A silver birthmark on her inner wrist began to glow with ethereal light. Not just any mark, but a perfect crescent moon surrounded by ancient symbols that seemed to pulse with their own heartbeat. The light grew brighter, casting silvery shadows across the great hall and making everyone shield their eyes. The silence that followed was absolute. Alpha Rowan stood frozen beside his ruined table, his blue eyes wide with shock and something that looked like recognition. His face had gone completely white, and his hands were trembling at his sides. Impossible, Beta Marcus whispered, his voice barely audible. But Rowan heard him. Slowly, as if moving through water, the Alpha stepped around his table and approached Lila, who was still kneeling among the broken crystal. She looked up at him in confusion, tears streaming down her cheeks, completely unaware of the miracle blazing on her wrist. "Show me," he commanded softly. "Alpha, I don't understand. Your mark. Show me." With shaking hands, Lila held up her arm. The crescent moon birthmark pulsed brighter, and the ancient symbols seemed to dance across her skin like living things. Every wolf in the great hall leaned forward, trying to get a better look. Rowan stared at the mark for a long moment, his breath coming in short gasps. Then, to the absolute shock of everyone present, the Alpha of the Crescent Moon Pack slowly dropped to one knee before the trembling Omega. "My Luna," he said, his voice carrying clearly through the stunned silence. "My fated mate. The true Luna prophesied by the moon goddess herself." The great hall erupted. Shouts of disbelief mixed with gasps of awe. Some pack members fell to their knees in reverence, while others jumped up from their seats, arguing loudly about the impossibility of what they were witnessing. "That's not possible," Serena shrieked, her face contorting with rage. "She's nothing. She's nobody. This has to be some kind of trick." But her father's face had gone ashen, and Lila noticed him exchange a sharp, meaningful glance with several other pack elders. Something passed between them, something that looked like fear. Alpha Rowan gently took Lila's glowing wrist in his hands, his touch sending strange tingling sensations up her arm. "The mark of the moon goddess," he announced to the hall. "The sign we've all been waiting for." Lila's world tilted sideways. This had to be a dream or a nightmare. She was just Lila Matthews, the orphaned Omega who scrubbed floors and served wine. She couldn't be anyone special. Certainly not the mythical true Luna from ancient prophecy. But the mark on her wrist continued to glow, and the Alpha remained kneeling before her, and 500 wolves watched in stunned silence as everything they thought they knew about their pack's future crumbled to dust. The great hall exploded into chaos. "This is madness." Elder Thompson's weathered fist slammed against his table. "An Omega cannot be Luna. It goes against everything we know about pack hierarchy." "The moon goddess doesn't make mistakes," countered Elder Sarah, dropping to her knees with tears streaming down her face. "The mark is real. I can feel the power radiating from her." Voices rose in heated argument, some pack members bowing in reverence while others shouted their disbelief. Warriors reached for weapons that weren't there. A blessing, considering the tension crackling through the air like electricity before a storm. Lila remained frozen on her knees, staring at the glowing mark on her wrist that had somehow turned her world upside down. The light was fading now, but she could still feel warmth pulsing beneath her skin, as if something ancient had awakened inside her. "Get up." Alpha Rowan's hand was gentle but firm as he helped her to her feet. His blue eyes held a tenderness she'd never seen before, completely different from the commanding Alpha who ruled their pack. "You don't kneel to anyone anymore." "Alpha, I don't understand," Lila whispered, her voice barely audible over the shouting crowd. This has to be some kind of mistake. I'm nobody special, I can't be. You are my Luna, Rowan said firmly, his voice carrying enough authority to quiet the nearest arguments. The mate chosen for me by the moon goddess herself, and you will be treated with the respect that position demands. Beta Marcus stepped forward, his expression carefully controlled. Rowan, perhaps we should discuss this privately before making any permanent declarations. The mark could be a coincidence, or... Are you questioning the moon goddess's will? Rowan's voice dropped to a dangerous growl. Of course not, Marcus replied smoothly. But surely you can understand our concerns. Lila is. She has no wolf, no training in pack leadership. The prophecy speaks of a powerful Luna who will unite the packs, not a servant girl who can barely carry a tray. His words hit Lila like physical blows. He was right, she was weak, untrained, completely unprepared for any kind of leadership role. How could she possibly be the true Luna from ancient prophecy? That's enough, Rowan snapped. I won't have my mate's worth debated like she's livestock at auction. Your mate. Serena's voice cut through the crowd like broken glass. She pushed through the gathered wolves, her face twisted with fury and disbelief. This pathetic Omega is supposed to be Luna of the Crescent Moon Pack? She doesn't even have a wolf. The mark speaks for itself, Rowan said coldly. Marks can be faked. Serena shot back desperately. Witches have spells, tattoos can be enchanted. The Alpha's patience finally snapped. Power rolled off him in waves, forcing every wolf in the hall to bare their necks in submission. Even Serena stumbled backward, her defiance crumbling under the weight of his dominance. The next person to question my Luna's authenticity will be exiled from this pack permanently, he announced, his voice echoing off the stone walls. This celebration is over. Everyone return to your homes. Now. The crowd began to disperse reluctantly, voices still raised in heated whispers. Lila caught fragments of conversation as people filed past, some expressing awe at witnessing the fulfillment of prophecy, others muttering about the impossibility of an Omega Luna. Come, Rowan said gently, placing his hand on the small of her back. We need to talk privately. He guided her through a side door into his personal study, a smaller room lined with ancient books and maps of pack territories. The moment the door closed behind them, Lila's composure finally cracked. This can't be real, she said, shaking her head frantically. I'm not Luna material, Alpha Sterling. I can't even serve wine without spilling it everywhere. How am I supposed to lead a pack? Rowan, he corrected softly. My name is Rowan, and you're wrong about yourself. He moved to a massive leather-bound book on his desk and flipped it open to a page marked with faded ribbons. The parchment was yellow with age, covered in the same mysterious symbols that had appeared around her crescent moon mark. The prophecy of the true Luna, he explained, tracing the symbols with one finger. Written over 1,000 years ago by the first moon priestess. She will come in darkness wearing the mark of the goddess, to unite what has been torn asunder. Not born to power, but power born in her. Lila stared at the ancient text. Not born to power. That could mean anything. It means the true Luna wouldn't come from the high-ranking families, Rowan said. She would rise from nothing, earning her position through strength of spirit rather than bloodline. Meanwhile, 3 floors below in Beta Marcus's private chambers, father and daughter were having a very different conversation. This changes everything, Marcus paced back and forth, his usual composure shattered. If she truly is the true Luna, she could unite all the neighboring packs under Rowan's rule. Our influence would be nothing compared to that kind of power. Serena slammed her fist against the window frame. She's not the true Luna. She can't be. I've been groomed my entire life to be Rowan's mate, to be the next Luna. Some pathetic Omega is not going to steal my destiny. Calm yourself, Marcus said sharply. Emotional outbursts won't solve this problem. We need to think strategically. What if the mark is real? Marcus paused his pacing. Then we make sure she doesn't live long enough to fulfill the prophecy. Back in Rowan's study, the Alpha was attempting to explain centuries of pack politics and prophecy to a girl who'd never been allowed to attend pack meetings. I still don't understand why it has to be me, Lila said quietly. Surely there's been some mistake. The moon goddess doesn't make mistakes, Rowan replied, echoing Elder Sarah's earlier words. I know this is overwhelming, but I'll be here to guide you every step of the way. Starting tomorrow, you'll begin learning everything you need to know about pack leadership, politics, and your role as Luna. Lila's mark gave a faint pulse of warmth, and for just a moment, she felt something stir deep inside her. A spark of power she'd never known existed. Maybe, just maybe, she was stronger than she thought. Moving into the Alpha's private wing felt like stepping into a different world. Lila's new quarters were 3 times the size of her old servant's room, with an actual window that looked out over the forest and furniture that wasn't held together with hope and determination. The 4-poster bed alone was bigger than her entire previous living space. This is too much, she protested as Rowan set down the single bag containing all her worldly possessions. People are already talking. If I'm staying in your quarters, they'll think I'm protecting my mate, which is exactly what I'm doing, Rowan interrupted, his blue eyes serious. After last night's revelation, you're not safe in the general quarters. Too many people are struggling to accept the change. He wasn't wrong. The whispers had started the moment she'd walked through the pack house halls that morning. Some wolves bowed respectfully, but others watched her with barely concealed hostility. She'd overheard more than one conversation questioning whether an Omega could really be their Luna. Besides, Rowan added with a small smile, these rooms connect to mine, but you have your own space. Your own privacy. Heat crept up Lila's neck. The idea of being so close to him, of sharing the same living space as the most powerful man in the territory, made her stomach flutter in ways she wasn't ready to examine. Over the next few days, Rowan began her education in earnest. Every morning after breakfast, they'd meet in his study where he'd spread out ancient texts and maps, teaching her about pack history, territorial boundaries, and the complex political relationships between neighboring communities. The Shadow Ridge Pack has been our rival for over 50 years, he explained, pointing to a section of the map marked in red. But according to the prophecy, the true Luna will unite all packs under one rule. That means former enemies will need to become allies. No pressure there, Lila muttered, studying the intricate web of pack territories. Each one represented hundreds of wolves with their own traditions, leaders, and grudges. You're stronger than you know, Rowan said softly. I can sense it in you, even if your wolf hasn't emerged yet. Their fingers brushed as he reached for another book, and electricity seemed to spark between them. Lila jerked her hand away, but not before noticing how Rowan's pupils dilated slightly. The mate bond was growing stronger each day, pulling them together in ways that both thrilled and terrified her. That night, Lila's dreams were unlike anything she'd ever experienced. She stood in a vast battlefield under a blood-red moon, watching as dozens of wolf packs tore each other apart in vicious combat. The ground was soaked with blood, and the air rang with howls of pain and fury. Then a woman appeared, tall and regal with silver hair that seemed to glow with its own light. The same crescent moon mark blazed on her wrist, but this one pulsed with raw power. She raised her arms and energy exploded outward like a shock wave. The fighting stopped instantly. Every wolf froze mid-battle, their eyes turning toward the powerful figure. Without a word, they began to bow, recognizing the authority of the true Luna. You are the legacy, the woman's voice echoed in Lila's mind. The power sleeps, but it will wake when you need it most. Lila jolted awake, her heart pounding and her mark tingling with residual warmth. The dream had felt so real she could still smell the battlefield smoke and feel the ancient power humming in her veins. 3 days later. Absolutely not, Serena's voice carried across the training courtyard where Lila was attempting to learn basic self-defense. I refuse to take orders from some jumped-up servant who thinks a fancy mark makes her special. Elder Thompson had suggested Serena help train Lila in combat basics, since the Beta's daughter was one of their most skilled female fighters. It was going about as well as expected. "I'm not giving you orders," Lila said patiently, trying to copy the defensive stance Serena had demonstrated. "I'm just trying to learn." "Learn?" Serena laughed coldly. "You can barely throw a punch without falling over. How exactly do you expect to protect this pack when you can't even protect yourself?" To prove her point, Serena launched into a series of attacks that left Lila sprawling in the dirt within seconds. A small crowd had gathered to watch, some pack members shaking their heads in disappointment. "This is embarrassing," Serena announced loudly. "Our so-called Luna, flat on her back in the mud. Maybe the moon goddess made a mistake after all." "That's enough." Rowan's voice cut through the crowd like a blade. He strode into the courtyard, his expression thunderous. The temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees as his alpha power rolled outward. "You will show respect to your Luna," he said, his voice deadly quiet. "Or you will find yourself exiled from this pack permanently." Serena's face went white, but her eyes blazed with hatred. "She's weak, Rowan. Everyone can see it. How can she possibly?" Out the single word carried enough force to make several onlookers stumble backward. "Now." After Serena fled, Rowan helped Lila to her feet, his touch gentle despite the anger still radiating from him. "You don't have to defend me," Lila said quietly. "Maybe she's right. Maybe I am too weak for this." "Never say that." Rowan cupped her face in his hands, his blue eyes intense. "Strength isn't just about throwing punches. You have something far more powerful inside you. I can feel it." Standing there in his arms, dirt on her clothes and bruises forming on her skin, Lila felt something shift between them. The mate bond hummed stronger than ever, and for the first time, she found herself leaning into his strength instead of fighting it. "Rowan," she whispered, not sure what she was asking for. He seemed to understand anyway. Slowly, giving her time to pull away, he leaned down and pressed his lips to hers in a kiss that was gentle and fierce all at once. When they broke apart, Lila's mark was glowing softly, as if responding to their connection. "My Luna," he murmured against her forehead. "My mate." And for the first time since this all began, Lila didn't immediately deny it. The encrypted message arrived at dawn, delivered by a raven with silver-tipped feathers, the traditional messenger of the Shadow Ridge pack. Beta Marcus Blackwood read it twice before burning the parchment in his fireplace, watching the flames consume words that could mean life or death for everyone involved. "Your proposal interests us. The Omega Luna threatens the natural order. We are willing to discuss terms. Midnight 3 days hence at the Old Stone Bridge. Come alone." A slow smile spread across Marcus's weathered features. Alpha Kieran of Shadow Ridge was taking the bait. If everything went according to plan, both Rowan Sterling and his pathetic Omega mate would be dead within the week, leaving the Crescent Moon pack leaderless and ripe for the taking. "Father." Serena appeared in his doorway, still in her nightgown, her dark hair tangled from sleep. "I heard voices. Is everything all right?" "Better than all right, my dear," Marcus said, settling back in his leather chair. "I've just received confirmation that our problem will be resolved very soon. The Omega will learn that some destinies are worth fighting for, and some aren't worth surviving." 2 days later, Lila was actually starting to feel confident in her combat training when Serena approached her in the garden behind the pack house. The Beta's daughter wore a friendly smile that immediately put Lila on edge. Serena was never friendly without an ulterior motive. "Luna," Serena said, the title dripping with false sweetness, "I owe you an apology for the other day. My behavior was completely inappropriate." "Oh," Lila blinked in surprise, lowering the training sword she'd been practicing with. "Thank you, Serena." I appreciate that. I was thinking perhaps we could start over? Maybe take a walk together, discuss pack matters? There's something important I need to show you in the old ruins. Something about the prophecy that Elder Morrison discovered. Every instinct Lila had developed over her years of surviving pack politics screamed danger, but she pushed the feeling down. If she was going to be Luna, she needed to at least try to build bridges with other pack members. All right, she agreed reluctantly. But shouldn't we tell Rowan where we're going? It'll just take a few minutes, Serena assured her. Besides, he's busy with the council preparations. This way we won't interrupt his important work. The old ruins lay at the edge of pack territory, remnants of an ancient temple dedicated to the moon goddess. Moss-covered stones jutted up from the forest floor like broken teeth, and shadows pooled between the fallen pillars despite the afternoon sun. Lila followed Serena deeper into the ruins, her unease growing with every step. The place felt wrong somehow, too quiet, too isolated from the safety of the pack house. Here, Serena said, gesturing toward a partially collapsed chamber. The symbols Elder Morrison found are just inside. The moment Lila stepped through the archway, she heard the distinctive crack of breaking stone. She spun around just as a massive boulder crashed down, sealing the entrance and plunging her into near darkness. Serena! She screamed, pounding against the rock barrier. Serena, help me! Cruel laughter echoed from the other side of the stone. Did you really think I'd help you, you pathetic little Omega? You've stolen everything that should have been mine. Rowan's attention, the Luna position, my entire future. Well, congratulations. You can die with your precious prophecy. Panic clawed at Lila's chest as she realized the trap she'd walked into. The chamber was small, maybe 8 feet square, with no other exits. Air was already becoming stale, and she could hear water dripping somewhere in the darkness. The walls are unstable, Serena continued conversationally. One good shove and the whole thing will collapse. They'll find your body eventually, of course, but by then it'll look like a tragic accident. Poor little Lila, killed by her own curiosity. The sound of Serena's retreating footsteps faded, leaving Lila alone with her terror and the growing certainty that she was going to die in this forgotten corner of pack territory. 20 minutes later. Where is she? Rowan's voice carried the edge of a barely contained alpha rage as he stalked through the pack house, demanding answers from anyone unfortunate enough to cross his path. I saw her talking to Serena in the garden, offered Maria, one of the kitchen staff. They headed toward the forest about an hour ago. The moment the words left her mouth, Rowan was moving, his enhanced senses already picking up Lila's fading scent trail. Fear and fury warred in his chest. If anything happened to his mate, he would tear apart whoever was responsible with his bare hands. He found the ruins just as the last of Lila's frantic pounding echoed from behind the sealed chamber. His wolf roared to the surface, lending him strength as he hauled away stones that would have taken 3 normal men to move. Lila, he called out, his voice rough with desperation. Rowan. Her reply was weak but alive, and relief flooded through him like a physical force. Within minutes he'd cleared enough debris to pull her from the chamber, gathering her trembling form against his chest as she sobbed into his shirt. I'm sorry, she gasped between tears. I should have known it was a trap, I should have. This wasn't your fault, he growled, his eyes already scanning for signs of who was responsible. Serena's scent was all over the area, mixed with something else. Her father's cologne and the distinctive musk of fear. As they made their way back to the pack house, Lila caught fragments of a hushed conversation between 2 warriors who didn't notice their approach. Meeting tonight at the stone bridge. Beta says it's the only way to save the pack from. Shadow Ridge wolves will handle the rest once. The voices cut off abruptly when the speakers spotted their alpha, but Lila had heard enough. Beta Marcus was planning something involving their rival pack, and she had a sick feeling it centered around eliminating her. But she had no proof, just overheard whispers that could mean anything. That evening, as pack members gathered for dinner, the tension was thicker than smoke. Some wolves bowed respectfully when Lila entered, while others watched her with barely concealed hostility. The pack was dividing, choosing sides in a conflict that could tear them apart from within. And somewhere in the shadows, Marcus Blackwood smiled and continued weaving his web of betrayal. The formal council meeting had been called to officially announce Lila as Luna to representatives from all allied packs. The Great Hall was packed tighter than Lila had ever seen it, with visiting alphas, betas, and high-ranking wolves filling every available seat. Banners from a dozen different packs hung from the rafters, creating a sea of colors and territorial symbols. Lila stood beside Rowan's ornate chair at the head table, wearing a deep blue dress that had belonged to his mother, the previous Luna. Her hands trembled slightly as she surveyed the crowd, many of whom were openly skeptical about accepting an Omega as their leader. "Before we begin," Rowan announced, his voice carrying easily through the hall, "I want to address any remaining concerns about Luna Lila's legitimacy. The mark of the Moon Goddess speaks for itself, but I understand change is difficult." Alpha Marcus Steele from the River Valley Pack raised his hand. "With respect, Alpha Sterling, a glowing birthmark is one thing. But can she actually lead? Has her wolf emerged? What powers has she demonstrated beyond party tricks?" Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. Lila's cheeks burned with embarrassment. He wasn't wrong. Despite weeks of training, she still felt like a fraud wearing the title of Luna. "The prophecy states that her power will manifest when," Rowan began, but his words were cut off by a tremendous crash. The Great Hall's main doors exploded inward in a shower of splintered wood and twisted metal. Armed wolves poured through the opening, their eyes glowing with battle fury, and their teeth elongated into deadly fangs. The distinctive silver and black war paint on their faces marked them as Shadow Ridge warriors. "Attack!" someone screamed, and chaos erupted instantly. Tables overturned as pack members shifted into their wolf forms or reached for weapons. The sound of snarling, snapping jaws filled the air as battles broke out across the hall. But these weren't just Shadow Ridge wolves. Lila spotted several Crescent Moon warriors fighting alongside the attackers, their faces twisted with betrayal. "Protect the Luna!" Rowan roared, his own transformation rippling through his body as he shifted into his massive black wolf. But even as his pack rallied to defend her, Lila found herself surrounded by enemies. "There she is." Serena's voice cut through the chaos as she leaped onto the head table, a silver dagger gleaming in her hand. "Kill the false Luna." 3 Shadow Ridge assassins closed in from different angles while Serena blocked her retreat. Lila pressed her back against Rowan's chair, completely defenseless. She'd never felt more helpless, more utterly out of place. "Please," she whispered, not sure if she was talking to her attackers or the Moon Goddess herself. "I don't want to die." The first assassin lunged, his claws extended toward her throat. And something inside Lila snapped. Her crescent moon birthmark erupted in brilliant silver light, so bright it illuminated every corner of the Great Hall. But this wasn't the gentle glow from before. This was raw primal power that made the air itself vibrate with energy. "No!" she screamed, and the word carried the force of an alpha command magnified 100-fold. Power exploded outward from her body like a shockwave. The assassins attacking her were flung backward, slamming into the stone walls with bone-crushing force. But the energy didn't stop there. It swept through the entire hall, and everywhere it touched, something miraculous happened. Crescent Moon warriors found their strength doubled, their wounds healing instantly. Their enemies, however, were driven to their knees by an overwhelming compulsion to submit. Even the traitorous pack members stopped fighting, their faces slack with awe and terror. Lila felt the ancient power flowing through her veins like liquid fire. In her mind's eye, she could see every wolf in the hall, could sense their thoughts and intentions as clearly as if they were speaking aloud. The sensation was intoxicating and terrifying all at once. Alpha Kieran of Shadow Ridge, who had been battling Rowan near the hearth, suddenly froze mid-strike. His yellow eyes went wide as the full weight of Lila's power settled over him like a crushing weight. Impossible, he gasped, his massive wolf form trembling. You're just an Omega. I am the true Luna, Lila replied, and her voice echoed with the authority of 1,000 years of prophecy, chosen by the moon goddess to unite the packs. And you will kneel. The command hit Kieran like a physical blow. Against his will, his legs folded beneath him, forcing the proud alpha to bow before the woman he'd come to kill. One by one, every wolf in the hall, friend and foe alike, dropped to their knees in submission. Even Serena, who had been raised to believe she was destined for greatness, found herself prostrating on the floor before the glowing figure at the head table. The attack is over, Lila announced, her mark pulsing with each word. Shadow Ridge warriors will retreat immediately and never threaten this pack again. Any Crescent Moon wolves who participated in this betrayal will surrender themselves for judgment. The compulsion in her voice was absolute. The surviving attackers filed out of the hall like sleepwalkers, their fight completely drained from them. The traitorous pack members, including several warriors who had served faithfully for years, stepped forward with their heads bowed in shame. But maintaining such enormous power was taking its toll. Lila could feel the energy burning through her like acid, consuming her strength with every heartbeat. The silver light began to flicker and fade. Rowan, she whispered, reaching toward her mate as her legs gave out beneath her. She collapsed just as he reached her, his arms catching her before she hit the floor. The last thing she saw before darkness claimed her was the faces of hundreds of wolves staring at her with newfound respect, fear and wonder. The Omega who served food had become the Luna who commanded armies. And nothing would ever be the same. Lila drifted back to consciousness 3 hours later, her body aching as if she'd been struck by lightning. The infirmary was quiet except for the soft scratch of a pen on parchment where Dr. Hayes was updating her charts. Through the window she could see the full moon rising over the forest, casting everything in silver light. "How do you feel?" Dr. Hayes asked, noticing she was awake. "Like I got trampled by a stampede," Lila admitted, sitting up slowly. Her mark still tingled with residual power, but the overwhelming energy from earlier had settled into something more manageable. "Is everyone all right?" "The attack repelled completely thanks to you," the doctor assured her. "Though we lost 3 good wolves, and several more are being treated for injuries. Alpha Sterling is in the Great Hall, dealing with the aftermath." Lila nodded, then paused as she noticed something odd. "Where are the prisoners? The traitors who helped Shadow Ridge?" Dr. Hayes's expression darkened. "That's complicated. You should speak with the Alpha." Before Lila could ask what he meant, shouts erupted from somewhere in the pack house. Not the chaos of battle this time, but the organized roar of wolves demanding justice. Dr. Hayes's face went pale. "Stay here," he ordered, but Lila was already sliding off the examination table. Not a chance. She made her way toward the Great Hall, following the sound of angry voices. The corridors were packed with pack members, all pressing toward the main gathering space. When she finally pushed through the crowd, her blood ran cold. Beta Marcus Blackwood stood at the center of the hall, one arm wrapped around Serena's throat, and a silver blade pressed against her jugular. His daughter's eyes were wide with terror, tears streaming down her face as she realized her father had just made her a pawn in his desperate gambit. "Ah, the miracle Luna awakens," Marcus called out, his voice carrying easily through the suddenly quiet hall. "How perfect. Now we can settle this properly." Rowan stood 20 feet away, his entire body coiled with barely restrained violence. "Let her go, Marcus. Your fight is with me." "Is it?" Marcus laughed bitterly. "My fight is with this pathetic charade you're all calling destiny. An Omega Luna? The prophecy was never meant to be taken literally. It's folklore bedtime stories to give hope to the weak." The silver blade pressed deeper, drawing a thin line of blood on Serena's throat. She whimpered, her earlier arrogance completely shattered. "You're wrong," Lila said, stepping into the circle. Her voice was steady despite the fear clawing at her chest. "And you know it. You felt my power just hours ago. You all did. Parlor tricks." Marcus spat. "Enhanced by whatever dark magic you've been dabbling in. But magic fades, girl. True strength comes from bloodline, from breeding, from the natural order that has kept our pack strong for centuries." "The natural order that had you selling out your own pack to Shadow Ridge?" Rowan's voice was deadly quiet. Marcus's face twisted with rage. "I was trying to save us. Do you think the other packs will accept this mockery? An Omega Luna will make us the laughingstock of every territory from here to Canada. They'll see us as weak, ripe for conquest. So you decided to conquer us first." Lila realized, the pieces finally clicking together. "The attack tonight wasn't random. You planned it all. Fed them information about our defenses, our patrol schedules. I gave them an opportunity to remove the false Luna," Marcus corrected coldly. "When that failed, I decided more direct action was necessary." He shifted his grip on Serena, and Lila saw his knuckles go white around the dagger handle. This man had helped raise her, had been like an uncle to pack children for decades. Now he was prepared to kill his own daughter to maintain power. "I challenge you, Rowan Sterling," Marcus announced formally. "Alpha rights under the full moon. Winner takes leadership of the Crescent Moon Pack." "No," Lila said firmly. Both men turned to stare at her in surprise. "If you have a problem with my position as Luna," she continued, walking closer despite the weapon at Serena's throat, "then your challenge should be with me." "Lila, don't," Rowan warned, but she held up her hand. "I am Luna of this pack," she declared, her mark beginning to glow with soft silver light. "The moon goddess chose me, not because I was strong or well-born, but because I understand what true leadership means. It means protecting those who can't protect themselves, even when they've wronged you." Marcus snarled and shoved Serena away, raising his dagger toward Lila instead. "Then die with your delusions, little Omega." He lunged forward, but Rowan intercepted him with a roar that shook the rafters. The two men crashed to the floor in a tangle of limbs and claws, Marcus's human form no match for Rowan's partial shift. But the beta was desperate, and desperate wolves fight dirty. Silver flashed in the moonlight streaming through the windows as Marcus managed to slice across Rowan's ribs. The alpha stumbled, silver poisoning burning through his system. "Rowan!" Lila rushed forward without thinking. Power flooded through her again. Not the explosive force from earlier, but something more controlled, more purposeful. She placed her hands on Rowan's wounded side and felt the silver poison neutralize under her touch, the deep gash healing cleanly. Together, they turned to face Marcus, who was backing toward the wall with wild eyes. "This isn't over," he panted. "Even if you kill me, others will." Serena's scream cut him off as she launched herself at Lila from behind, a shard of broken glass in her hand. But instead of dodging, Lila simply caught her wrist and held it steady. "I forgive you," she said quietly, looking into Serena's tear-filled eyes. "Both of you. This pack has seen enough blood tonight." The simple words, spoken with such genuine compassion, seemed to break something inside Serena. She collapsed to her knees, sobbing. In the stunned silence that followed, representatives from 3 rival packs who had witnessed the battle stepped forward and dropped to one knee. "True Luna," they said in unison, "we acknowledge your right to rule." 1 week later, the coronation ceremony took place under the same full moon that had witnessed Lila's awakening. Every member of the Crescent Moon Pack gathered in the sacred grove, along with representatives from 7 neighboring territories who had come to witness history in the making. Lila stood at the heart of the ancient stone circle, wearing a gown of midnight blue that seemed to capture starlight in its folds. The dress had belonged to the first Luna of their pack, passed down through generations and now finally finding its rightful owner. Her strawberry blonde hair was braided with silver threads that caught the moonlight, and the crescent mark on her wrist pulsed with steady, gentle radiance. Members of the Crescent Moon Pack, Rowan's voice carried clearly through the grove. 1 week ago, the moon goddess revealed her chosen Luna to us. Tonight, under her sacred light, I formally present Luna Lila Sterling, my fated mate and your rightful leader. The ceremonial crown, a delicate circlet of silver inlaid with moonstones, rested on a cushion held by Elder Sarah. As Rowan lifted it, the stones began to glow in harmony with Lila's mark, confirming what everyone now understood. This was no political arrangement, but divine will made manifest. Do you, Lila Matthews, accept the sacred duty of Luna? Will you protect this pack with your life, guide them with wisdom, and stand as their shield against all threats? Lila's voice rang clear and strong. I do. The crown settled onto her head as if it had been crafted specifically for her, and power hummed through the air like a tuning fork struck against stone. Every wolf present felt it, the rightness of this moment, the completion of an ancient prophecy. One by one, the pack members knelt. Elder Thompson, who had questioned her worthiness, bowed his gray head in reverence. Maria from the kitchens wept openly as she pressed her forehead to the earth. Even the visiting alphas dropped to one knee, acknowledging the authority of the true Luna. At the back of the crowd, Marcus Blackwood knelt beside his daughter. The former beta wore simple clothes now. His rank stripped but his life spared, thanks to Lila's intervention. Exile had been commuted to demotion, and both father and daughter would spend years earning back the pack's trust. But they were alive, and that was more mercy than most leaders would have shown. All hail Luna Lila! Elder Sarah's voice rang out across the grove. All hail the true Luna! The crowd responded, their voices joining in a chorus that sent shivers down Lila's spine. After the formal ceremony ended and the crowds began to disperse, Rowan took Lila's hand and led her to a quiet overlook at the grove's edge. The pack land stretched out below them, bathed in silver moonlight, peaceful and protected. Any regrets? He asked softly, wrapping his arms around her from behind. Lila leaned back against his chest, marveling at how perfectly they fit together. About which part? Going from servant to Luna in a matter of weeks? Nearly dying multiple times? Or discovering I have magical powers I still don't fully understand? About accepting your destiny, Rowan clarified, pressing a gentle kiss to her temple. She considered the question seriously. 3 weeks ago, she'd been invisible, powerless, convinced she'd never be anything more than a forgotten Omega scrubbing floors. Tonight, she wore a crown and commanded the respect of hundreds of wolves. The transformation should have felt surreal, but instead it felt right. No regrets, she said finally. Terrifying as it is, this is who I was always meant to be. My equal, Rowan murmured. My partner. My Luna. Your mate, she added, turning in his arms to face him properly. Forever. Their kiss was soft and sweet, full of promise for the future they'd build together. When they broke apart, Lila's mark was glowing gently, and she could feel the mate bond settling deeper into her soul like a warm embrace. The prophecy mentioned uniting all the packs, she said thoughtfully. That's going to be our real challenge. Shadow Ridge was just the beginning. We'll face it together, Rowan assured her. Whatever comes next, we'll handle it as partners. Lila nodded, then tilted her face toward the full moon hanging overhead like a silver coin against the velvet sky. She could feel the moon goddess's presence more clearly now, a warm maternal energy that filled her with confidence and purpose. Thank you, she whispered mentally, for choosing me, for believing I could be more than I thought possible. The moon seemed to pulse brighter for a moment, as if responding to her gratitude. Standing there in her mate's arms, wearing the crown of her ancestors and feeling the power of centuries flowing through her veins, Lila Matthews, no Luna Lila Sterling, finally understood her true worth. She was no longer the invisible Omega who served food in the pack hall. She was the bridge between old and new, strength and compassion, the leader who would guide her people into an era of unprecedented unity and peace. The moon goddess had chosen well. And her story was just beginning.